Today I want to talk to you guys about what to look out for when you're buying lenses at car booths and charity shops to resell online for profit. Like with a lot of different categories, condition is very key, and you may not know it, but there are certain things that can drastically affect the condition of even a fully functional lens. The main thing to look out for when you're looking at lenses at car booths, etc., is there any fungus? Now, that can be tough to check, but if you're outdoors, you can just look through the front element, the front of the lens, and if you hold it up to some light, you'll be able to see into the elements inside of the lens. And if you see any kind of like dust or like little patches, like spider web style type stuff, what you'd expect to see like a fungal growth or a fungal spore to look like. If you see any of that on the lens, you could still buy it, because it's very possible that that won't affect the image quality that's coming out of the camera, but the presence of obviously fungus on the inside of the lens is going to drastically affect the quality, because you're going to have to mention it. It's going to drastically affect the value, because you're going to have to mention it in your listings that there is fungus. Now, people can fix that, because obviously leaving the lens in direct sunlight will eventually kill any fungus that's growing, but it will turn to dust, and the dust will still need to be removed. And opening lenses is not for the faint of heart. These are very precisely put together. So that's the first thing to look out for, is have a look through the front of the lens and check to see whether you can see any dust or fungus. If not, that's a good start. With a more modern lens, you're going to be limited as to how much you can test it. You can pretty much look through the lens like I've shown you to check for fungus, but you're not going to be able to check functions like the image stabilization or the autofocus, or even whether the aperture is working, because most of that is now done electronically and works through the camera body. So unless you happen to have the right camera with the right mount, and there's lots of different mounts available for these cameras, there's you have to have the right mount for the right camera. So you're not really going to be able to fully test a more modern lens when you're out at a car boot. If, however, you come across a nice little lens like this is a manual lens, a manual focus lens, you will actually be able to test out pretty much everything. You can look through it, make sure it's nice and clear, and then you can actually adjust the focus ring. You can make sure that's nice and smooth, and you can actually adjust the aperture as well. So if I hold this up to the camera, you can see that right now you can see right through it. But if I turn this little ring that's on here, let me just actually do it so I can grip it. So if I turn that ring, you can see the eye is opening and closing. So I can actually check the aperture ring, so make sure that's all working. And in this case, like I said, this is a manual lens. It's working exactly how it should. I've put it all the way down to f16, and you can see there's a tiny hole letting light into the lens. And if I open it all the way up to f2, in this case, nice wide aperture there for lots of light to rush through, and that'll give you some really cool effects. So with a manual lens, you can actually pretty much make sure it's all working. The other thing to look out for is actually on those blades, those are called aperture blades. If you can see any oil on those, that is also something you'll need to mention in a listing, and again can affect value. So look out to see whether there's any oily residue. In terms of value, you've got two types of lenses. You've got zoom, and then you've got fixed focus. Fixed focus lenses, also known as prime lenses, can be worth a fair amount of money, because they tend to have these bigger apertures. So for example, this lens can go all the way down to f2, and that will create some really lovely backgrounds. This zoom lens is limited to, I think it's f3.5, and that might not sound like a big difference, but in terms of stops, it's like quite a massive difference. You pretty much, when you're each stop of light, so if you go down from like f2.8 to f1.4, that's one stop of light. That's literally halving the light that the lens is letting in. So it makes a big difference. So when you're getting down to the numbers 2 and below, those lenses are going to have good value. So look out for lenses with an aperture of 2 and below, prime lenses, so they don't have any zoom. If they're manual, all the better, because you'll be able to pretty much test a lot of the functionality even without a camera. And hopefully that will be enough information for you to go out, make some educated buying decisions when you see lenses, and make some profit. Thanks for watching.